Hello, I'm Plested, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
A couple people have been talking to me about you, like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Little Mix and the Vamps talked to me about you. And I was like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And then here you are today, Plested.
I'm in the building. Hello.
In the building.
How are you doing?
Good, man. Good.
Good.
So, you know, when I spoke to them, this was like, I don't know, 2016, 2017. I think Touch had already come out. And like they were talking about like, yeah, working with this new guy as far as like the song goes.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I like the way he writes. So, you know, talk to me about your creative process when you write music, especially like when you write for other artists as well.
Well, I think all of my songs, because I'm kind of like 50-50, I like to keep most of my songs. I give some of them away if they're good enough. But I always start with a phrase or a word that I just think is interesting.
Right.
I'll tell you a secret about Touch. Is that the idea of just a touch of your love, it came from my best friend's car, and he had a broken wing mirror. And every time I got in the passenger seat, he'd be like, can you just move that wing mirror a little bit? And I'll be like, yeah, just a touch. and then I got in the studio and I wrote a song called Just a Touch. So
Wow.
So yeah, that was a good one.
That was the most random inspiration I've ever heard.
I know, it comes from anywhere.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, you know, when you kind of wrote those songs back in the day, like, did you know they were going to them specifically, or it was one of those that you kind of wrote them and then to see which artist was going to pick them up in a sense?
Yeah, I tend to just write, and then if I get lucky, it'll just land with someone. Little Mix was really cool because I didn't find out until I heard their version, and thank the Lord, it was amazing. They really smashed that song, so I was super happy with that one.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like some hometown kind of love too.
Oh yeah, and I love the girls; they're amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, when you go into the studio to create your music, you mentioned earlier it's like 50-50 for you, but like, what makes a song a Plested song as opposed to a song that goes somewhere else?
I think with my own songs, they always tend to be a lot more heartfelt, and it's usually something that I'm going through. I have a song called Ribcage, which is a song about like not being able to fall in love, because I've always found it so hard to kind of like find those feelings, or at least like surrender to them. And then I have the last single that I put out, Either You Love Me or You Don't, was a song about being in the friend zone, because I'm professional at that. I think a lot of people are. So I kind of like, my songs tend to just have a more kind of underlying, like they're from the heart. You know, not that the pop songs that I give to other people aren't, but they're a lot more just like anyone can sing them.
Right.
You know,
it's more personal to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you open up and get personal, especially, you know, for the very first time that you did that, like, how did you get comfortable with opening up, knowing that there was going to be a world out there like listening to your music?
I don't think. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be fully. You know, it's a strange feeling when you put your heart out into the world for people to listen to and pick apart. You know, because not everyone likes your songs. Right. So it's a weird one. But one of the first songs I put out was a song called Habits, which is just like the idea of having someone who is kind of like your everything. And it really kind of like gave me confidence when I put that out, not expecting anything to happen, but people were actually like, oh, I kind of like this, and people were reacting. Right. And that gives you the confidence. And once you have like a cool little fan base that are open to kind of hearing your stories, and every now and then you get a message that's just like, oh, I'm going through the same thing. That's what I'm like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. It doesn't matter how I feel. I'm like, as long as I'm helping someone, you know, and kind of let them understand what they're feeling a little bit more, that's great. And so that will keep me doing it, you know.
Now, what about when you write a song like Your Name, where you're kind of, in a sense, talking about someone else?
Yes.
So do you kind of keep that song to a certain level where like that person will not know who they are, or does that matter to you?
I think it depends, you know. I think that song, I'll tell you another secret. The person that Your Name is about, their name is in the middle 8. Or I think Americans call it the bridge. So like the section after the second chorus. Yeah. I rhymed all the words with this person's name. But that's like a little Easter egg that no one knows. So you can go and try and work that out. You're never going to get it. But I think it's nice to do that. I think it's nicer to kind of be a little bit more like secretive, you know, because that always gives emotion to a song. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough one. Maybe.
Now, what made you think about those little Easter eggs within the song? Like, is that something that, I mean, do you do that normally with your music, or that just kind of happened on that song specifically?
That happened on that song specifically. I remember I was writing it with my friend Scott, and I was just like, you know what? Like, maybe this is a cool idea, just because of what the song's about.
Right.
I was like, why don't we actually try and get their name in the song? You know, try and make it like a little bit 3-dimensional. But and it just worked. I think if you try and do that too much, like potentially like it doesn't necessarily work,
Right.
or people just get a little bit confused. I'm a massive fan, this is such a tangent, but of Pixar, you know, Pixar, the animation studios.
Right.
And one thing that they do is they have Easter eggs in all of their films.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try and do it a bit more.
That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah, you've inspired me.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
Nice.
That's what I mean. People can know that about you, like, oh, because before we used to open the CDs and look at the liners. We were talking about our age earlier, and we would open up the liners and see who's who and who did what, and then now it's kind of hard to have those kind of emotions when new music comes out. So that could be something that we could look forward to.
So true. Very true. Yeah. Great.
Got to get to it, man.
Gonna do it. It's happening. It's done.
So now new single is out now. The Least I Can Do.
Yes.
Talk to me about this new track, and what was different this time around as you came into the studio and created it.
I am so excited about The Least I Could Do, and I'm so glad that it's finally out, because this was the first song that I fully was like, I want to keep this song. I don't want to give it to anyone else. I don't want anyone else to sing it. It's too personal to me. Yeah. So the fact that it's finally come along and it's out in the world is a bit scary, a little bit. I'm like, I just hope people like it. But when I was in the studio, I wrote that with a friend called Joe, and we did it on a Saturday. I wasn't meant to be at the studio, but I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. And then again, I had this phrase where I was just like, what is the least that you would do for someone? And I thought it'd be interesting to basically say that the least you could do was die for someone. Yeah. And I basically wrote it like thinking about my mum. Everyone has that connection with their mum where it's like you do anything for your mum and your mum would do anything for you. Right. So that's like the angle that I was going for. But I love it because I think it's one of those songs anyone can have their specific person that they can think about when they listen to it. Right.
Right.
So.
Now, when you went into the studio with Joe, did he kind of help you with the writing as well, or was he more of a producer for this track?
He was more of the producer. He started with the guitar riff that is like that amazing riff that I was just like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, yo, I was like, turn it up, we're going. And then we wrote it like super quick. So it was so fun that day.
So how does that work for you? Like, because you listen to the riff, you get inspired by the riff, but do you already have an idea of what you kind of want to talk about, or you just start kind of mumbling? Like, I know people start mumbling lyrics until something kind of like, a story kind of comes along. Is that the same for you? Yeah,
I am a mumble artist. Literally, I'll just be like, for about an hour before one word even comes out. So yeah, we should film that part of the session. Yeah. We could put out a whole album with that.
Reality of being an artist.
That's my third album. Great.
So where does this track come from? Like, is this a solo track that you worked on? Is this part of a body of work that you're in the process of working on?
I'm in the process of making a body of work. I don't want to call it an album. I don't want to call it an EP. It's just
mixtape, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because I put out my first project last year called The First and Foremost, which is kind of in the middle. It's just a collection of songs that are the like introduction to me as a person. Right. So with The Least That I Could Do, I want it to be a part of like the next installment, just kind of to explain like how my year's been, and I did a bunch of touring, and that's like a whole new set of emotions that I've never explored before. Right. So I kind of want to create this body of work that is based around that.
And how did Joe kind of challenge you on this record? Was this the first time that you worked with him, or have you been working with him consistently with all your other tracks?
I think it was actually my first session with Joe. Yeah, because he's a friend, and we were finally like, we're going to get in, we're going to write a song. He challenged me because it is a very, very hard song to sing. Like when you listen to it, the timing's it's a little bit swung and it's bouncy, and the verse is very low and the chorus is very high. So when I was singing it, I was like, Joe, I don't know if I can sing this. He was like, you better sing it, because it's like, it sounds good, you better sing it. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it, Joe. He was like, go on, Phil. And we got it out eventually. Yeah. But I love it. I will see what happens when I sing it live. Who knows? But fingers crossed.
Do you change it at all once you go live or once you hit the guitar and just do it acoustic?
No, not really. I try and keep it as close to the original, even though it's really hard to play. I've been like trying to learn it for the last like 5 weeks, just perfecting it. But with that, I think I've got it now, hopefully.
Now you did mention that this was like the first track that you were just like, this is mine, only mine type of deal. Do you just start writing music and then eventually figure out if it's going to be for you or someone else?
Yeah, I tend to just get the songs. I'm very much a pessimist, so like 99% of the songs I write I think are rubbish until someone else is like, Phil, this is actually quite good.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's all right. But it tends to be like someone else will hear it and be like, oh, we like this. I had like a Kygo and Miguel song that happened with. I just found out that Kygo was interested, and I was like, I don't think he is, but thank you. And they were like, no, he really is. And then I heard his version, and it ended up on radio. Lewis Capaldi, I've done a song with as well. And
on his new album too, his debut album.
Yes, yeah, and he's killing it over here.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which I'm so happy about, because he's the best guy in the world.
Oh yeah, I remember interviewing him maybe a couple years ago, and like not a lot of people knew about him. And then now, like I feel like everybody's starting to get to know him, and it's like amazing.
Yeah, super happy for Lewis. What a guy.
So with that song in particular, he heard it and called you up for it, or you specifically went and wrote with him?
That one specifically, I wrote with him. But it was like we started at midnight and finished at 4 a.m.
Jeez.
It was a late one, but thank the Lord we got a good song out of it. And we kind of woke up the next day like, did we write a song? I can't even remember. But that was really cool. And he kills it. When he sings it live, it's so good.
Yeah. Now, I know you write a lot of music, like you're constantly writing music. Yes. And obviously you've done a lot of collaborations with other artists. So as you continue to write new material and you continue to collaborate with these, different artists and different, types of genres, how does that kind of influence the way that you create your own music now?
I think I've always said it's a good thing writing for other people, mainly because I'm always thinking outside of the box. I'm never kind of like in my own head thinking, right, you need to sound like yourself now, because that's always going to kind of ruin a song, and you just end up writing like 50 songs that sound exactly the same. Writing for other people and doing or being a part of different genres, you're always kind of like listening to that style of music and being like, what makes this cool and what makes people listen to this and what makes it hooky, and you can kind of take those things and bring it into like a more singer-songwriter folk thing that I do, and it kind of creates like a different sound. So every song has a little flavor of like something else, which I found like, Ed Sheeran does that really well, Adele does that really well, even like Bruno Mars, they all do that sort of thing. So I think it's important.
I was going to say it's a UK thing, but then you brought out Bruno Mars. I was like, no, it's not.
Bruno kills it. What a guy.
So you obviously about to hit the road. You're going on tour in the UK.
Yes.
What are the plans for the US though? And what can fans expect for those that are going in the UK to watch you? What can they expect? But then when can we expect a US tour?
Oh, well, I want to come to the US ASAP. so sometime in 2020, 100% I'll be here. Yeah. I think with my shows, I try and keep them as intimate as possible, just because it's like being a songwriter and really kind of like loving songwriting. I think it's nice to kind of tell people the story of where each song comes from. Yeah. So it's more of like a conversation when I don't like the idea of just being like, oh, there's that guy on the stage and we're in the crowd. I kind of rather we're all in one room and we're just having a conversation about songwriting. Right. That's what I want to get across. I like that. I like that. Thank you.
All right, man. To close us off, for those that are not familiar with you, you started writing music. Now you're a full-blown like singer, and you're still doing the writing on the side. But what is it about music that made you choose like this as your career path?
Oh wow. I think music is just one of those things where everyone needs it in their life, right? And like my granddad was the main inspiration for me to start music, and I just love the idea of being inspiration to any singer-songwriters out there that are just coming up and trying to find their way into the big bad world of the industry. I just want to let them know that like it can be done. It can be done. I didn't think I could do it, but I've done all right so far. So
you never know who might call you and tell you they want your song.
Yes, it might be me.
There you go. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. You guys be sure to check out Plested. New single is called
The Least That I Could Do.
And it's out now. Thanks for watching on Front Row Live.